Hi, everybody. Hello. Okay, wait, I'm gonna figure this out. Okay. Go for it. I think, oh yeah, that's my Twitter. I forgot I gave you that. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Eric. I'm one of the writers here, along with Caprice Wave.
Hi.
And yeah, you could go to my first slide, because I think, yeah, that, oh, that's hard to read. Well, I'm gonna stand over here. Yeah, but you can see that. So yeah, here I am. My medium is writing. Oh, there we go, thank you. Yeah, I'm a poet and a journalist, and so I write prose and poetry. My overall topic, I just wanted to give some context. I tend to write about the natural world. I love the history of landscapes, so ecology and the environment are sort of my most interesting, they interest me the most. And really the relationship between one's identity and the landscape that they live in, or the influences their thinking. So those are the kinds of writers I have fallen for. I also, hello, I also teach environmental writing to college students, so it's partly what I've studied, and also love and aspire to write. I just wanted to list some specific interests. So I am really interested in the language of ecology, I said, and the natural world. So something I've been writing about is taking concepts from science and applying them to my own life. So for example, in ecology, there's a term called ecotones, which describes where the overlaps between two ecosystems. So we're actually in an ecotone here, because it's where the plains meet the foothills. And at the edges of those two ecosystems, species tend to mingle in ways they don't normally get to mingle, because normally they're in their own ranges, but at the edges of ranges, things overlap, and so there's lots of mismatches and interesting ecological interactions. And I find that a really interesting threshold for thinking about myself and parts of myself that feel mismatched or mingling, and I'm trying to figure out. So ecotones would be an example of something I like to write about. Really interested in wilderness as a concept. I used to work for a wilderness organization, and the history of wilderness in the United States is really complex and very interesting. So I think about that in my writing, and the ways that identity doesn't want to be confined to boxes, and the ways that wild species in wilderness can be free. So terms like self-willed or untrammeled, those are words that come from the Wilderness Act, so they're part of the federal laws that protect and preserve certain landscapes. Hello. And let's, what else did I write? Oh, right. Yeah, I've worked as a naturalist, and so I'm not a scientist, but I'm a natural history enthusiast. So I love learning about natural history, so like botany and geology, forestry, birding, ornithology, all that stuff. So I don't necessarily like directly address those things in my writing, but I feel like they're what's tinkering in my head, so it maybe comes out. So yeah, that's some context. I think I'm gonna read something now. Oh, right. So your library has this book, and I found it. It's called The Round River by Aldo Leopold. If you haven't heard of him, he is a very famous conservationist and wildlife biologist who was born in Iowa and lived in Wisconsin for most of his life. And this is a quote of his that has really influenced me. It's very old, but it's still just as important, so I'm gonna read it. In his book, in one of his essays called The Round River, he wrote, one of the penalties of an ecological education is that one lives alone in a world of wounds. Much of the damage inflicted on land is quite invisible to laymen. An ecologist must either harden his shell and make believe that the consequences of science are none of his business, or he must be the doctor who sees the marks of death in a community that believes itself well and does not want to be told otherwise. So this is a quote that I find really interesting and important to think about in an age of changing climate and eco-anxiety, or grief for the way landscapes are changing so quickly, and leading to things like the biodiversity crisis. As a journalist, I've written about these things. So again, this is just stuff that's tinkering in my head. Also questions of environmental justice and the kinds of wounds that are inflicted on landscapes, and how those landscapes are inhabited by different people differently, and unfairly and inequitably. So yeah, I think that's the background. I meant to start the timer, so you'll just cut me off if I go too long, right? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna read a poem that's not about really any of that, I guess. It's just a recent poem I wrote. Okay, so this is called Arranged and Conducted But Never Reflected. And I wrote this while listening to a song by Alice Coltrane called Blue Nile. All right, arranged and conducted, but never reflected. A high whistling entrances my past. The double bass metering out the tempo and sounds of class. Feathers, a kind of flute, sounding out. Columns of air. This ear an E flat. This here a D sharp. This here an F. Whose pitch am I tuning now? Each foothold tonguing the keys, lips barreling the openings, fielding sonic riches. Cueing a former signature, rushing orchestral memories. Last batter in the lineup, ruined runt, a coach's son, an umspad call, written off. I salivated for years over that diamond. How precious, how square. The home run that struck me out again, running away from home. Okay. I'm gonna read another one. I'm gonna say this one. Okay, this is called False Belief. False belief. A gully I rush into. Out of ravenous chatter. A gutter plugging me drainless. Another one. This is called Communal Kitchen. A friend is dicing red onion and garlic in fits and starts. Irregular fragments zigzagging across the cutting board. Peels and skins floating like loose leaf off the counter. When I said something, I don't remember what, that cued something inherent in my friend. An emotion or thought that had been hiding in the waiting. On deck for this very moment. Released as piquant and prickling word shavings and sound bites. A retort from raw to cooked, expressed head to toe. Now dancing across the kitchen, arms akimbo, then scarecrow, then skeletal. Hands and fingers slicing truth through the air, perching on the cutting board, then preaching back onto the torso. The whole body, one stressed exclamation point, popping and bobbing off the floor of the mind, from countertop to sink to fridge, flying off its handle, a burning thought now baked. Okay, good. I want to give you an example of the process. So this is a poem I wrote before I came here last month. I went to a writing workshop in Ohio at a college there called Kenyon. They had this workshop, and this is the dorm room I was sleeping in, and sometimes I write from photos. So this was a photo I woke up to, and I was like, I have to write a poem about that. So I just woke up and wrote this. Rally the days. I prism sliver, peach in half. Canopies pleading. I float this sway, where cinder blocks senesce. Dehiss, and I gradient, and I gape the participles. I unline, and ice cube, and tauten, as the great blue downies my cap, belts the King River. I Spartan this cell, re-replicate the finish, a matrix who mattresses and swamps the morning, hewing into light. I pipe and dream the pistol's furtive pollen, and okay, it's the last one. Right, I forgot I put this up there. Okay, well, it's a little different. So yeah, more photographs. So I wanted to share like the process here. So I was taking a walk on the road up to the hill, and I just like was in love with the sky. So then I was like, okay, how do I write about the sky? So these are some color swatches to try and describe the colors of blue I was seeing. I work in color and light. I work in color and light as it parses this river valley into parcels of prairie and geology, archival acreage, where wood has turned to stone, and desert birthed latent on beds of ancient seaway. The way natural facts true the imagination, bringing into alignment ancient forces evolving, where singular landscapes become multiply inhabited, and biological truths melt and thaw, the plain meaning of words. My medium is color and light, one word glance after another. Okay, that's all.
Eric, would you like to take some questions?
Oh yeah, questions, if you have any. Is that still working? Okay. I know it's a lot, right? Yeah.
I think we could get a pretty high agreement that a poem doesn't come out of the pen,
Yeah,
it comes through the pen.
totally.
And likewise, does it come out of the writer, the poet,
That's
or come through?
I've been thinking about that a lot. That's so funny you asked that. I think it comes through. I don't think I'm the one writing it. I think it's just like, because I tried to write this poem yesterday about something I'd taken a photo of, and I spent like 4 hours trying to write this poem, and it did not happen. And then the one I just read, I wrote in like 5 minutes. And I was like, well, I guess that's the poem that needed to happen. So I was trying to write something and I couldn't write it, but when I let go, something happened. So I think there's like messages we're all supposed to deliver, and they just come through us. Through painting, through sculpture, through writing, whatever. So yeah.
We could almost live in a let go.
Yes, life is one long surrender. I don't even know who I am, so. That's what I feel. I don't know. I mean, like, I know who I am, but I also don't, so. Thanks, that's a great question. Any other questions?
Was there ever a time in your life that you found it difficult to write?
Yeah, most of the time. That's why I came here. It's a lot less difficult here because I can just have a lot of space. And I'm realizing that's something that if I don't have does block me, because I'm very distracted easily because I'm just so interested in so many things. So yeah, in order to write, I find that I need to have a lot of space to be able to process everything that's happening in the world. And so, because I live in a city right now, I find that it kind of blocks me up because it's harder to focus there. So being here is really, really a gift. And I know that about myself. I need a lot of space, and this is the land of the solace of open spaces. So I'm able to write more easily here.